A Supreme Court ruling this past weekend struck down efforts by the Biden administration to extend the federal eviction moratorium as the Delta variant causes cases, hospitalizations, and deaths to skyrocket. The CDC issued moratorium was supposed to last until October 3rd, but with the ruling, evictions are set to immediately resume, potentially stranding millions of Americans who can't afford rent. Congress is now facing pressure to extend the moratorium legislatively. Said Speaker Pelosi, quote, Congressional Democrats have not and will not accept a situation of mass evictions. Here to discuss is Deputy Whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Rep. Ro Khanna. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. Obviously a very important issue. You've been outspoken on it. I come from the side of things where Congress should have been the one to deal with this in the first place. But let me ask you, what tools do you have in your toolbox to help with eviction moratoriums immediately?
Well, we have the tool of passing a bill. I mean, Congress can pass the bill. They should have a vote on it. I don't think people would vote no on the floor of the House. I mean, California, fortunately, in my state, has an eviction moratorium until the end of the year. There's no reason that the House and the Senate can't pass the same bill.
Is this something that people are talking about putting into reconciliation, into the package that's, allegedly going to come up by the end of September or October?
It is, but I think people want to move faster than that, Ryan, because as you pointed out, it's almost end of September. It could go into October until all of that comes together. What's going to happen in the interim, in the intervening months? So most of us want a clean vote on the House floor. We believe if there is a vote, it would pass, and we believe that the Senate would pass it too if they actually put it up for a vote. So that's the priority, but reconciliation is a fallback.
Now, roughly how many Americans does the eviction moratorium on this date still affect?
Well, it affects millions in terms of the repeal. I don't have the exact number, but there are millions of people who risk being kicked out. And it makes absolutely no sense in the midst of a pandemic that you're going to put people on the street. They're actually not just the human cost, not just the moral cost, but they're going to become spreaders of COVID. And so this is a time where we need to make sure people are sheltered. They're not kicked out. They have the homes or apartments that they're in.
What are the states doing? Do you know, are the states dealing with this on a state by state issue?
Yes, Kim. I mean, in my state, we have the eviction moratorium until the end of the year. One of the challenges is how we're going to deal with back rent. I mean, whenever the moratorium ends, you're going to have people in the working class, middle class have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of back rent. And we have to figure out how we have some forgiveness program. And for small landlords, how they are compensated. I mean, the big landlords don't need anything, but there are small landlords, small businesses who do need support. So the states and the federal government need to have both a rent forgiveness program and aid to small landlords so that they don't go out of business. And that's something we need to do more long term.
And as you push for a legislative solution, are people talking about writing this legislation in a more thoughtful way? I mean, if you think about the PPP program, which allowed businesses to continue to pay its workers, it was quite straightforward. It was like, hey, if you're a business, you can claim this money, and then all you have to do is justify it later. And if we find out that you committed fraud, then on the back end, we'll claw that back, and you'll be in trouble. And so as a result, basically tons of people got PPP money. Lots of people were able to stay on payrolls. But then when they went and did it for landlords and tenants, they made it this incredibly cumbersome process that they devolved to like every town and county around the country and make people on the front end file all sorts of paperwork before they get the money across the door, like the complete opposite approach that was taken for small businesses. So, and as a result, you have this $40 billion sitting there unspent. And so as you're pushing for a legislative moratorium fix, is there talk about rewriting the legislation so the money can actually get to people?
Absolutely, Ryan. It needs to be administratively simple. I mean, this reminds me of Annie Laurie had a great piece in The Atlantic talking about how the hidden taxes are bureaucratic complexities that many people in the working class, the middle class, they actually can't fill out all the forms. The small businesses can't fill out all the forms. The PPP, I think, was a success, other than the fact that in the beginning, it went to people connected to the banks, and then we fixed that and said, no, you really need to target small businesses. So I think there has to be some clear baseline that this is actually being targeting to small landlords, not big real retailers, big landlords, but it needs to be administratively simple. And I do think Maxine Waters is aware of that, and they would craft something much simpler than what has taken so long to get out to the states and get to counties and people who need them.
So I want to shift now to COVID vaccines. I know that the FDA is now shifting its focus towards approving vaccines for children under 12. And you led a bipartisan letter of more than 100 House lawmakers urging the FDA to increase transparency about their timeline for approving the vaccine for young kids. You later tweeted that, quote, the FDA seems oblivious to the urgency that millions of parents with young kids feel about vaccination. Their communication has been very poor. Parents need a timeline. So my question for you is, the FDA moves already at this point. It's been quite rapid and maybe even too rapid for a lot of people. Are you pressuring them to move faster than you think the science is giving them? I mean, they only have so many. I don't know how many test studies they've done even for kids under 12. I mean, what's your stance on that?
Well, they should have started the studies, first of all, a long time ago. I don't know why they delayed to this point. And if you talk to other parents in Congress and the constituencies, they are livid. They're livid that the schools are going to start and kids are going unvaccinated. Now, the American Pediatrics Association, who are all of the leading doctors, all of the leading scientists, and Dr. Jha have said that they need to approve or at least strongly consider approving emergency use after the current study. And what we're saying is, why is that current study, which should end at end of September, is that good enough? If it's not good enough, why isn't it good enough? And what is the exact timeline? So I do think the FDA got off to a late start on this. They should have had better planning. They should have tried to get the studies done by the time the school year started. They missed that mark. We certainly want to listen to the science, but you have the American Pediatrics Association basically saying there is a huge cost, a huge risk to not having our kids vaccinated, and the FDA needs to consider that risk.
And we will have more with Congressman Ro Khanna next.